Okay, Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, 4:01 p.m. I will call to order the Bucyrus City Board of Zoning Appeals. Roll call, please.
Mr. Stuckert.
Here.
Mr. Farmer.
Here.
Mr. McKeever.
Here.
Mr. Stride.
Here.
Mr. Lipscomb.
Here.
Okay, everybody's present, nobody to excuse. That's good. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting, the July 15th, 2021?
We have to correct the motion to adjourn. I made the motion, I can't second it.
Oh, I noticed that.
I don't remember who seconded it.
Okay, anybody remember which one seconded the motion to adjourn the last meeting?
I think I did, I think.
We can reference the recording to...
I do believe it came from that side of the room, so.
Okay.
I do believe it was there.
Since we're not
think
sure,
so.
then
I think, okay.
Since we're not sure, then we'll wait and let him reference that. I think we can go ahead and make a motion, though, to approve the minutes conditional on that change.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes by Mr. McKeever, seconded by Mr. Stride. Thank you. See you all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We'll double check this time since Mr. Ratliff is not in the room. It's up to me to swear in attendees who wish to speak. So anybody who wishes to speak today before the board, please stand, raise your right hand.
Yes.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury by law? State your name and ID one at a time, please.
Tom Manili, I do. Bill Taylor, I do. Brett Baker, I do.
Jared Miller, I do.
Landon Hill, I do.
Thank you. I will ask also that when you're called upon to speak, please go to the podium and restate your name and address. Okay, the first subject is Brett Baker, owner of the property located at 108 Brookside Drive, would like to install an in-ground swimming pool in the rear yard of the property. The pool, measuring approximately 18 foot by 40 foot, would be placed approximately 6 foot 7 inches from the south side yard lot line. The pool will be installed per the requirements for private swimming pools listed in Bucyrus Codified Ordinance BCO 1187.02. The property is located in the residential estate zoning district, in which the required minimum side yard width is 20 feet. Mr. Baker is requesting a variance from BCO 1187.01C to allow for the placement of the pool as proposed. Okay, Landon, would you give us some details, please?
That explains it pretty well. You can see there Mr. Baker's property on the left from the county auditor's website with the red square indicates its proposed placement in the rear yard. And then on the right side is the plans that were submitted by the contractor for the installation. And this, I was trying to show it a little clearer on here, blow up the image a little bit, but the plans called for it to be placed 6 foot 7 inches from the side yard lot line, in line with the proposed addition, accommodating it to the north. It is inset from the current edge of the house, which indications appear there may be some encroachment issues with that. I don't know if that's the case or not. But at a minimum, the fence would also be required to be placed off of that shared yard lot line. So he's requesting a variance from the minimum 20-foot side yard setback to that 6 foot 7 inches per the plans.
Any comments from the
We did not,
surrounding folks?
we did not receive any feedback from the neighboring property owners.
Well, this is getting a little picky, but I see one place that refers to it as the rear yard, and another place that says side yard, but it is actually the side yard, right?
It is in the rear yard, but it is located within the side yard setback.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's considered the south side. Okay.
So,
Good
yeah,
enough.
yes,
I know where it is, that's good.
yes.
Mr. Baker, do you have anything to add?
I guess the only thing, talking to the pool guys about this, we already have concrete patio kind of already there, so you can see the round area. And then he just said, because I asked him if there was any, any wiggle room, if we could move it, and he said, we could possibly go a little bit, but he said, you're going to end up getting into that concrete, we're going to have to tear it out or something, which we'd rather not do, in order to make a buffer area between the pool. I think he said there would be 1.5 foot kind of concrete edge that they're going to put around the pool. But if we get much further over, that, then you're going to end up with a piece of concrete that's not, I don't know what the standard is, but it's not going to be wide enough between the concrete and existing, so we're going to have to tear out concrete that we already have to accommodate having the pool come over. So he mentioned to me most places are a 10-foot setback, and which he said, like I said, there is some wiggle room. We could maybe do something with that, but he acted like he wouldn't do much. I don't know much about it. I'm just getting a pool installed, so,
Well, I guess my immediate response is if it was in a high-density area, that probably would be a serious consideration. In this case, I mean, there's nothing around it or even close to it. It probably won't be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a vacant lot that the Combs own, and I don't think they have any plans to sell it, because I know some of my friends and people I know have approached them, and they're, at this time, not any, they're not entertaining any thoughts of selling the lot or anything. They're just going to keep it what it is. And, I don't know if it helps, but I know we're having a locked cover on the pool too, along with, if we got to have a fence and that too. But
Well, the insurance company would be the one that would want to know about that.
yeah. And the problem with our house is this: the property line is, as you see, it's right snug against our garage, basically. So there's, like I said, there's no room there at all to do much. So.
Well, I don't see how it would be an issue for anybody, really. If nobody that lives there has made any response, apparently they know about it. So
Yeah.
apparently have no objections.
I can also say that with that property there, somebody would build a house, they wouldn't be right on top of you anyhow.
Nah.
Because there's 3.35 acres
Yeah, I think
there.
there's 3.5 acres there. Yeah.
So, I mean, he could split that in two and they still won't be on top of you,
Yeah.
so I don't see a problem.
Well, when I was looking it over, I thought to myself, well, if Bill Combs doesn't mind, I don't think there's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of room there.
Yeah.
The plans had indicated that a gate on the east side of the fence, well, I guess it'd be the south side of the fence that you see there, they had indicated that it'll open out away from the pool. So if that's the case, you may want to keep that in mind with the placement of the fence.
Okay.
Not to, so it does not open up onto the neighboring property,
property.
encroaching into
Okay.
there, and give yourself enough access
Yeah, we
space
weren't-
on the
we
other
weren't
side.
planning on it anyway. Yeah.
That was the only thing I would note specifically with that.
Okay.
I don't see any issue with it either. I agree with with everybody else here, and based on that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this variance. We
Okay.
can discuss more or whatever, but go ahead and start it.
Have a motion for Mr. Lipscomb to grant the variance.
I'll go ahead and second that.
A second by Mr. McKeever. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lipscomb,
Yes.
Mr. McKeever,
Yes.
Mr. Stride,
Yes.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, guys.
Set.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Hey, Breck, we have all the documentation over there ready. They've already submitted it. So we can get that approved and, we'll make those minor notes related to the fence, but would you prefer me to deal with the contractor or?
Either way.
Okay.
I know I think they're starting on the 21st is what
Okay.
I got an email yesterday. I think it was anywhere, supposedly the 19th, when they emailed, said now the 21st, depending on the weather too.
Sure. Okay.
Somewhere.
Well, I'll get those started, getting them processed, and I'll give you a call and just
Okay, that's
let
fine.
you know.
Yeah, I can swing by and get it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Bryce.
You guys want me to stay for the rest of
Yeah,
it?
You're free to go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. Back to that place was a little rough, and then I realized I wasn't parked there.
I hope that's true.
Okay, for subject number 2,
I'll be over there.
Swan Song LLC, owner of the property located at 428 East Mansfield Street, would like to open a flea market and arcade at the property. These uses are classified as retail product sales and service and personal service, respectively. The property is located in the General Industrial GI Zoning District, in which retail product sales and service and personal service uses are listed as conditional uses. Conditional uses are subject to approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals based on the characteristics of the subject property and use. Swan Song LLC is requesting a conditional use determination to allow for the proposed uses at the property. Landon.
Yes, that explains the issue well. Like you said, it is located in the General Industrial District, which is a part of 2 of our industrial type districts. And in the general, which is geared more towards the manufacturing side of those industrial uses, the uses similar to, retail sales, personal services, et cetera, are listed as the conditional use. And like you said, conditional uses are subject to the approval of this board, based on the characteristics of each application. You should have in front of you, the gentleman from Swan Song LLC provided just prior to the meeting a sketch of the site plan that is required to be submitted as a part of the conditional use determination, and then a breakdown of the interior as to how they're planning to situate that. So both of those things are available for you there to view. A part of the change in use would be the requirement for an accommodation of a number of parking spots based on the classification and based on the square footage of the property. The property is slightly over 15,000 square feet, gross square foot area, and that comes out to around 51 parking spaces that would need to be provided. You can see there on the development plan that they have sketched out showing what their vision will be. They've explained to me that that's not quite in concrete yet, as to they don't know exactly the specifics. The engineer they were referred to was unable to provide a document until August, so this was kind of a placeholder in the meantime. The property has had some violations on it from me based on, they began the retail use without the approval, and then from the fire department as well, and Chief Schwemley is here, and he has provided a letter and a copy of the original notices that went onto the property. That should be right below your chairman letter there for your reference. But that's kind of a high-level look at it.
Glenn, do you have other copies of that proposed use plan? Chief, excuse me.
Now, from the letter here, Chief, I understand this, the letter tied in with the information that the Richland County will be involved in this. I'm assuming that part of their approval process is that these conditions are met that you've cited that need to be repaired or fixed or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a question, you may want to go to the podium.
Yes, please.
Are you intending to use all 3 floors?
No, no.
That was one of the questions I
No.
was,
I don't know if any of you saw the newspaper article that Gary Noble did in the local newspaper as far as our plans for the building. And I'm pretty excited, and I apologize to the city of Bucyrus for being a little anxious to get this doggone thing going, because I was very excited about it. I'm a veteran, and I was excited about all the potential things I could do with that old building. And so I jumped the gun, and I apologize for not dealing with it as, you know, as a professional way as I should have, so my apologies for that. But we tried to get Mr. McKeever referred us to a place, and I think it was Shelby, but he couldn't get it till August or September, I think, something like that. So I pulled upon a commercial artist friend of mine to draft up what you're seeing as far as the picture of the parking lot area. And Landon said that we needed to answer your question, the total requirements for the use of the building is, like in case some of you haven't seen that, the first floor we're putting an antique, collectibles, a craft, flea market type place with the individual canopies inside, as well as 63 of my arcade games from when I was downtown in Mike Robinette's building across the street from Baker's for 2 years. So we've taken that business and incorporated it in, so we're making it into a go-to kind of place. People come in and shop and do all that stuff, and then here's $10, go play some games. And I got to tell you, the average age of my customer isn't no 15, 16-year-old. It's usually 45, 50-year-old men who grew up with the Pac-Mans and the centipedes and all that. So when I found out the requirements as far as parking, I figured rather than, because we figured it out, Landon figured it out, 51 parking places per floor. And that's why Drew had that drawing drawn up. So we're going to go ahead and shoot for the total 2 floors of parking by us taking that space and making the requirements of 102, which I'm pretty sure we'll do. But with such a mess out there, we don't really know what's there until we start moving things around. And then that will give us the opportunity to make the parking that we need. So the first floor was going to be that for now. Eventually, we're going to be moving the flashback business up to the 2nd floor in the general offices. And at that point, we plan to put a miniature golf course, an inside 18-hole miniature golf course and then batting cages as well, which will really make it a nice, entertaining type place. And because I'm a Vietnam veteran, for whatever reason, the idea came up about Doug Wilson, who is a veteran who helped me buy the building from Jeff Michaels. He and I were talking about it, and the idea come up that maybe we could meet with Jim Jordan, maybe talk about taking the 3rd and 4th floor and making it into a homeless shelter for vets, which me as a veteran, can't tell you how much that means to me to be able to do that. But that's all just plans down the work. We gotta get this thing going as soon as we can. But like I said, Bill and I just sort of this is Bill Taylor, my manager. He's the Bucyrus gentleman, he knows everybody. So, anyway, did I answer your question? Okay. Anything else?
Well, this might be kind of a question, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
See, there's a lot of things that are noted here that need to be upgraded, improved, changed, whatever, to make it meet safety and codes and so forth. So what's your intention to, I mean, looks like a pretty lengthy list, so maybe it's.
Well, our intention is to take those one item at a time, and we had hoped to get having, for some reason, everybody's so busy right now, finding contractors that can squeeze you into their schedule is just almost impossible. So for long story short, I became aware of a man by the name of Chuck Studer from Crestline, and I'm talking to him about coming in and doing the upgrades on the electric box. The elevator was taken out of service. Our intention is to reestablish three-phase service to the building and eventually get the elevator going, because without that elevator, the top three floors, or the third and fourth floor, they're just sort of there, but you can't do anything with them. So that's why our plans are to do everything we can on the first floor, and over a period of time, we hope to improve that. But then with Mr. Studer coming in, our goal is to have three-phase hooked up to the building again, and then eventually figure out where and however, but that's another whole story about the elevator, getting it back into service. We're doing what we can with the time frame that we have right now, and addressing all those things. We're just taking them one item at a time. And that's why I had the commercial artist friend drop the plan of the floor plan. Not only the parking lot was done, but the building itself, with all the doors are going to be push bar doors. We're going to have egress lighting, Americans, an ADA approved ramp coming in the front. So I think by looking at that drawing that was done, that'll show you that we've addressed all of those issues on the write-up. And we'll continue to do that. We just got to take our time and address these things, and that's what we're doing. But because the contractor is being so busy, it's just sort of hard to make it happen any quicker than it can. First thing we need to do is get the zoning approved to the conditional use, and then we'll go from that to the next thing, dealing with Mr. McKeever as far as the parking lot, and then the chief as far as the insides of the building. And since the chief was there, we've done an awfully lot of work to it. We've eliminated a lot of the problems that needed to be addressed. So I welcome him. Because I live so far away, Bill Taylor is my manager, and he's a Navarre person. A Bucyrus person. So because I come over here about once a week at best, anything that we can deal with as far as Mr. Taylor can, take the chief through or deal with Mr. McKeever. Otherwise, I'd have to do it a long distance, over the email or whatever, and I'd rather have him. That way, there's no miscommunication between what I perceive, and that way you can deal with him directly.
Well, when I was looking at this, I was concerned about this report from the fire inspection that Ryan Sparks did. According to what I see here, it was disapproved back in May, and from what I can gather, if you don't get all these 10 items taken care of, we won't be able to approve this for you right now. That's what I'm seeing right now.
We've been trying to address that since it all came out, but because the contractors are backed up on the work,
Have you got any of it done yet?
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Has the fire department come back and checked again?
No, it has not. If the fire department would come back, we'd be glad to take you through, because all the things that were of concern with them were concerns of ours too, and we've addressed that a lot.
Well, I think we're going to have the fire department come back in and check it again.
That's fine.
I think.
Yeah, just have to get a hold of Bill to get inside the building. Like I said, I'm only typically over here on a Monday, because I have other things going over south of Cleveland. Yeah, more than welcome to come over.
Okay. And our main thing was that part of the stuff that needs to be done, they potentially would need to have an architect draw plans and do some of the potential renovations. and to do some of those renovations, they really need to know that they're going to get approval to even use the building for what they want to use it for.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Travis, would you go ahead and read the letter from Chief Swimley?
To Bucyrus City Board of Zoning Appeals, the Bucyrus Fire Department supports the conditional use application of Swan Song LLC, owners of the property located at 428 East Mansfield Street, to open as a flea market and arcade. Prior to opening to the public, the fire department recommends that the owners consult with an architect to address the safety issues that are in the fire inspection report from May 6, 2021. Plans should be submitted to the Richland County Building Department for what the intended use and to show the changes that need to be made. This is to provide a minimum degree of fire and life safety to persons occupying the building. Respectfully, Chad Swimley, Fire Chief, City of Bucyrus.
Thank you. Okay. I guess what we're after is assurance that the public safety is in mind here. That
absolutely.
We're not going to have a building that is potentially a hazard to the public. Do you agree with what the Chief Swimley is recommending?
My concern is for the public safety as well. That's why we're doing, this isn't my first building I've ever owned, and I understand what needs to be done. And it's just that it's taken us longer to address these things than what I would like to have. But when the department comes back over and looks at it, they can see we made some big headway with it. And we're going to continue to address that. Each line item is going to be addressed one at a time, starting with, well, all the things. And we're agreeing to do that. That's what we've been working on since then. And when they can see what's changed in the building since this all happened, we made an awful lot of effort into it, and it's really coming around just wonderfully. So I have no problem.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If I could ask a few questions of the applicant.
Sure.
And my concern is that there's been a bit of a history of cart before the horse, as we've already seen with this building. And we've mentioned several times today already that certain repairs and some construction is taking place.
Not construction. We have taken out the liability. We've taken out first off, when we bought the building, it had, we haven't done any construction. We have done.
You've started doing some things inside the building.
We have, yes.
You've started making some changes to the electrical system.
No, we haven't. We've taken out all of the old debris that was.
So just cleaning right now? You haven't put in any
sure.
new doors, you haven't changed any new walls, you haven't changed anything with the electrical, you haven't done anything with the windows?
Pardon?
You haven't done anything with the windows?
With the windows?
Yeah, no changes to the windows?
We've opened the windows, and we've contracted with a...
Right, so I guess my question would be, what you have done so far, and what you plan to do over the next couple of months, do you have any engineering reports or directions as to what needs to be done to the building structurally?
We're going, well, first off, we're addressing the issues.
Okay, but you haven't had an engineer look at the building yet?
Oh, yes, we have.
And he's given you blueprints, drawings of what needs to be done?
As far as?
Anything? Have you had a licensed electrician look at the electric yet?
We talked to Mr. Ziegler at one time about
Has he given you any drawings or plans or anything for what needs to be done?
No, that's what we're
Have
replying.
you had a licensed plumber look at the plumbing yet for restrooms and handicapped accessible restrooms? Okay. Have you had an architect look at it and give you any plans or drawings as to what you need as far as fire escapes, handicapped access, just general public egress and ingress?
Well, that's why we provided these drawings for, to see that that
Right, so, but
this was not
I
done
have
by,
seen a lot of architectural drawings, but they usually are much more detailed than this. So, my question is, it doesn't appear that you've gotten any of those kind of drawings or plans done. And have you submitted any plans to Richland County as far as obtaining a building permit for Richland County?
we've applied for an electric upgrade. Mr.
Okay.
Ziegler
Did
applied
you
for that.
submit plans with that application for electric upgrade?
Did we what now?
Submit plans from a licensed electrician as to what you were going to do for that electric upgrade?
No.
Okay. Do you have any cost estimates as to what this total project's going to cost?
We have just sort of a general idea, but no one's actually, we've got to wait and see what the electrician comes back as the price as far as the upgrading.
Have you
Thanks.
secured, so you have a ballpark figure?
We have a ballpark figure as far as the cutting the doors out, putting the doors in, to replace the doors as far as push bar doors. I have an estimate from that for a
Okay.
contract, for a
But for
building.
the overall project, do you have a cost estimate?
Not the whole thing, because we got to take it step at a time.
Okay.
Okay, when you say a step at a time, do you mean that you want to do a portion of it and then they'll open the
I'm
business?
not a rich man. I've got to address these issues as they've been presented to me, which is what we're doing.
Okay, now, what I'm asking is, do you plan on doing a portion of it and opening the
Oh, no,
business
we're
and
not
then
gonna-
doing the rest of it? Are you planning to do a portion of the work, opening the business, and then following up with the rest of it after you're already open?
Well, that's not something that I'm going to be allowed to do, I don't believe.
No,
So,
we wouldn't.
right. So I had no intention of doing that. So I came here today to get the zoning approval, and then we can address those issues one at a time.
So, and I guess my point, I'm not trying to lead or anybody here or be overboard with anything, but my concern here for the board is that we may be in another cart before the horse kind of situation. By his own admission, he hasn't obtained any of the engineering, any of the plans, any of the designs, anything. These things may come back to this is a $2 or $3 million investment. And I would not be shocked at all if it was in that ballpark, knowing what construction costs are. I mean, I just bought 61 by 4s and I paid $600 for them. So, if all those drawings, if all those engineering estimates, if all the electricians and the plumbers and the architects and the engineers, and the fire chief will talk to you about issues that may be existing with the brick facade of the building. If those all things come back as a $2 or $3 million project, where do we stand?
If it comes back to a
Is funding in place to do that?
If it comes back to a $2 or $3 million project, I just can't afford that, $2 to $3 million.
And if it comes back that there's something structurally unsound in these buildings, or they're full of asbestos, or they're full of other EPA contaminants, was a phase 1 study done when you took the building?
I don't even know what a phase 1 study
Okay,
is.
did you have an EPA study to see if there was any EPA issues with the building?
No.
Okay. So all those things may come into place, and if you're going to have something that's open to the public, you're going to want to know those. And again, I fully support the idea of turning this building into anything other than the derelict brick building it's been since I was a child. But again, this is the reason it's like it is because it's going to be a nightmare to turn it into something good. And so again, this is just another one of those cart before the horse kind of situations, I think. That's my report for the board.
Well, I have a question. I mean, if I'm understanding this right, basically to open this building for any kind of use, most of these things are gonna have to be done. Is that correct?
Well, I don't even think we know,
No,
at this point, I don't even think we know what all needs to be done. This is just from the fire
No,
department.
but I'm just saying, these are things for safety issues, health and safety would have to be done regardless of what goes in there.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, whether or not we approve the zoning change, it's still, those things are still gonna have to be done if you use it for any use, it sounds like to me. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think the changes need to be made, and then it needs to come here to get the zoning changed to put whatever kind of business is gonna go in there. Because we can change the zoning, but if it doesn't meet the safety and health standards, then it's a new issue, really.
All right.
Landon, would they be required to resubmit another request, another charge?
No, I don't think so. I think you guys have options to table the matter and, you know, hold it until your requests are met or further information is given. Yeah, I think you have several options. I don't think we want to outright deny it because I think I think everybody's okay with the use. It's just the safety concerns. You could table it, or, which and this last one I would not prefer, but you could, you know, issue a contingent upon something being accomplished. I would prefer it be tabled in the meantime, and, you know, the occupancy loads, the number of ingress, egress, the construction of those ingresses and egresses, all of these things are something that if they reach out to Richland County, you know, they can tell them what these requirements are. The fire department can't necessarily tell them what those specific requirements are in most of those cases, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
You come in on the back end and do your...
Yeah, well, it's not our job to do the plan designing. It's our, more or less, to review the building or review the plans. And so what we did is we went in and more or less, from what they were trying to operate, how they were trying to operate before, there were not enough egresses, and there wasn't any emergency lighting, there wasn't any of that stuff that is more or less noted on the inspection form of why, and that's why we said it's not a safe, it was not a safe structure at that point to be holding business, running a business out of.
So to explain that, Richland County would provide or if they go to an architect who knows these things, they would provide the plans to Richland County that would show the appropriate amount of egresses, the appropriate emergency lighting, the appropriate construction of a handicap ramp, the appropriate, all of these things. And then as Richland County would do their inspections, the fire department would be in tandem with them on those types of things.
Right, I guess for the board reason, it's no different than the renovation that's going on right now at the FC Bank up downtown. They're doing stuff in phases as they go through and change office spaces in the building around. So,
Are they still allowed to operate their business during those changes?
in areas that have approved occupancy, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff, does Richland County require us to make this into a change the zoning so he can proceed, or can he go to Richland County to get that approved before we do any of this?
Landon can probably speak better than me. He deals with them all the time.
The way I understand their processes to work would be they could consult and submit plans to Richland County, under which Richland County, per state law, has to review them within 30 days of their submission. They would not issue a permit until they would have the approval from our local zoning, from this board.
So once Richland County has a set of plans.
And I'm sure they would be willing to work with us in this process. You know, we could update them and tell them this issue has been tabled. We want them to do this correctly. We want them to get where they need to go. So, you know, whatever type of documentation I need to provide them, whether it's a letter saying the board made this decision, and then, you know, once they get their approval from them that they need, we can come back and give it locally and get their permit issued.
Thank you.
That's the way I understand it to work. I can't tell you that I understand their process 100%.
What you're basically saying, I think, as I understand it, if Richland County, once they get the plans, if they come back then with something that compares to this list that we have from the fire department, that all these things need to be done, then then I would think it'd be appropriate that we could approve that particular variance, provided that these conditions are fulfilled, you know, contingent on, but you gotta have, like, the fire department, what they've given us is pretty straightforward, do this, 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 and then,
Right.
and we're, that's kind of the way I look at it.
And Richland County would do something similar, you know, they would issue what they call a correction letter as to what needs to be corrected, spelling that out specifically. And that's a part of their review process as well, you know, that 30 days that they have to review any plans that are submitted to them, that's a part of their process that they would provide those back to the applicant and, you know, work with them on the inspection process and all of that after the fact.
You know, I personally feel very comfortable approving a variance if we had a list of all the things that need to be done and then proceed there. And I have no problem with what you're doing with it. That's far better than the use it's being put to now, which isn't anything, you know. But I mean, it's sure be an asset, but we kind of need, for your protection too,
Sure.
I think you need to let
Sure.
everything needs to be done, and you can say, oh, this is just overwhelming, and you can, at this point, stop and reevaluate what
Well, I
you
have
do.
no intention of stopping. This is something I started, and I'm
Okay.
very excited about it, because there's just a real need for what we're doing. Besides, Bill and I are having a lot of fun doing it. It's not as though, because we're in an age now that I've said about a long time, here I am at 73 years old, and I bought a building that only a friggin' nut would buy. And I bought it, and I've said either it's gonna kill me or keep me alive, and so far it's keeping us alive. And if any of you could have seen the building when that building had, oh my God, $250,000 or more worth of old Eagle Crusher forms inside the building. So, I mean, it was just a big mess. And since the fire department has been in there, we've not done any construction at all. We've done deconstruction. We've cut out the old electric boxes that were there, the old, everything that we could take out of the place, because all I need is 110 volts on that first floor to operate the games and the lights on the ceiling. So the three-phase was for the potential use of the elevator down the road, because if I can get that elevator going again, my goodness, that second, third, and fourth floor just really is, going to be really a lot of fun to do. So
What surface do you have on the parking area?
the parking area is the ground floor of the original factory. I've been in contact with Mark Quinn, and he told me, he said that underneath that dirt, that topsoil, is all the original concrete floor, because I've seen aerial photographs of the building in 1956, 57, 58, and the parking lot between the two buildings right now is a concrete pad, and the idea was to be able to drive the tow motor from building to building to building, so per Landon's requirements as far as a finished surface, either being blacktop or concrete, we need to scrape off that top, because Mark Quinn has assured me, he said, you scrape all that topsoil off and there's a concrete pad underneath there. So it's not as though it's something
It's
that we...
already there, it just needs to be cleaned up.
It just needs to be cleaned up, yeah, and we won't know what we've got there. And the only reason I bought it is because it's right on Lincoln Highway. It's on Lincoln, and it's got an acre and a half. I mean, the total package is stuff that I know we can accommodate the parking requirements, and I know that we can address the exit lights and egress and all that stuff, which is what we've been doing on. So don't misunderstand us. We haven't done anything as far as, if you could have seen the place to begin with, and even since the fire department was there, you're more than welcome to come over and look and see what we've done, because we've taken that list to heart, and we've cleaned out a lot of, if there ever was a fire hazard, that building had all those old Eagle Crusher forms in there. And my God, we gave it away, we begged and borrowed, and anybody come on by and get a couple truckloads, and finally it took us, 6 months to get rid of all that Eagle Crusher forms. So we're up to the challenge. We actually enjoy it. It's just that it's taking a little longer.
Well, it's my humble opinion, it would be in your best interest to get some of these numbers, a realistic number on what's going to take.
Well, I'm sort of in a catch-22 predicament here.
And,
I'm going to address these issues one at a time, but, I don't want to go out and hire an electric guy to come in and do all the electric work. If I didn't think that it was going to work, I wouldn't have ever started this. I know it'll work. It's been a great thing for me to do. So that's all we're doing, is we're addressing these issues as they're given to us. We're taking it seriously. And it's like I said, I apologize, I was a little anxious, but that's me.
We have the door guys coming in now to install the doors, but they won't be here until the end of the month. And we're having four fire doors put in, one in each corner of the building. We've had all the electrical stuff taken out of the building that isn't of use. And we've already got the lights to put above the doors. We're just waiting for the electrician, with another thing, to be the end of this month, to do all the electrical work, install the lights and everything up. We got everything started that we're supposed to do.
In order to get to that point, we had to get rid of all the other crap that was in the building. That was all the old huge breaker boxes, all the old wiring and stuff we've eliminated, or taken that out and scrapped it out as well, so.
But again, if I could caution you, gentlemen, it's great to install the fire doors at the four corners of the building. But what if after you do that, your architect comes back and says, based on your layout and your usage, that's not where to put the fire doors? So I would spend my money on engineers and architects and plans first, and then start doing construction, because you install fire doors at the corners of the building, and then you decide in the corner is the best place for, the pinball machine or the cafe or the restroom, because that's where the sewer is or whatever. It's a cart and horse issue again.
Right.
So,
Right.
It's your money, but I would strongly urge you to consider plans and architects and engineers first, and then cutting holes and drilling pipes, and, second. I don't have a whole lot of construction experience, I just litigate.
We have taken what the building as it is and using what's there and using that and applying the new rules to it to nowadays as we can. And that's why we've got the we're gonna have the push bar doors and the egress lighting and all.
But I will say, I agree with Rattler. I wouldn't invest in those doors yet.
No, we're not.
Because
Right.
Richland County can say, that's not the proper place for that door placement on these walls. You may have to put them in the middle. You may have to put double doors somewhere. I wouldn't change anything until you got plans to save you money, because those doors are going to be expensive, let alone the labor to put them in.
Right.
And then you're going to have to move them and pay double. So I would seriously, I'd like to see this go through, but trying to save you money and heartache and waste of time, if it, structurally it may not be sound. It may not be able to use the upper floors, or, I'm not an architect, so I can't
well,
answer.
We know what we need to do.
Does the Richland County Building Department, do they provide an inspection of the site before anything is done? I mean, after plans are submitted?
After plans are submitted, yes, they have inspection processes related to, the electrical, to the plumbing, to the structural, to the emergency, to the fire suppression, to all of those things that they do, in concert with the development. And those things are typically, scheduled as needed as the development continues. They're not going to come out and tell them what they need to do and where they need to do it. That's why they would need to consult with an architect or an engineer to submit those plans to them for their review, make sure they're up to the current code, and then, work on implementing them.
Right. And their inspection wouldn't involve an EPA requirements?
That I probably couldn't necessarily speak to. They may have some types of processes for those. Specifically what they would be referring to this to is like a change of use group. from manufacturing to retail, and that's where it kicks in that all these requirements are gonna come into place. So I guess I'm not intimate enough with their processes to know whether or not, you know, those types of things, or asbestos abatement, or, I don't know.
Mr. Ratliff mentioned the EPA briefly there before, and that was one of my concerns as well with this, knowing that it is an old industrial building and site, that there could be EPA issues there that may need to be addressed. And I would think it would almost be necessary to have an EPA inspection done of the site.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm willing to table this so that he can proceed, if we can communicate with Richland County and make it so he don't have to pay for another application and keep this open until he can get information for us to proceed to go either way.
Rob, can it be tabled with a specific result in mind, i.e. we table it with the stipulation that they can come back to us when they have something from Richland County saying that the plans have been reviewed, or what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I think it's just a motion to table, waiting additional documentation. And if it's the plans that have been submitted to Richland County,
But they need to probably they need to specify that.
I would, it doesn't have to be Richland County, it could just be the final blueprints or whatever. I mean, it's up to the board, but the Richland County plans are probably the most succinct way of stating it, because Richland County's gonna tell them everything that they want.
And that provides the assurance that it's done legally. I mean, they are the state and commercial permitting and inspection office for Crawford County. That's anybody that opens a business or builds a new commercial structure or renovates a commercial structure has to go through their processes legally. So I would assume that that's probably the correct legal way to do it.
I'll
Should we
make
maybe
it.
stipulate a time frame here too to accomplish that?
He's going to try to do it as quickly as possible, but I don't know how we can set a time frame because he's trying to get people to do it, and it's taking him time. Because it takes to get an architect or construction can take you 6 months even for them to look at your plans to do something with.
We're trying to get an architect over in Shelby.
Right, I'm just saying, it's time consuming, you're trying to, we can say 6 months and look at it again and.
Unless they provide something in between, and then we'll just put them on whatever agendas upcoming at that
Right.
point.
I'll say, let's say 6 months, table this for 6 months, and if you produce something, that'll give us a time frame of when we can come back at it.
The thing that I hate to do is I'm trying to be as proactive as I can once we've got all this stuff, and that's why we've buckled down and put our head down and started addressing these issues. But it just seems to, my goodness, all the work that we've done, and then to get.
Well, but this is something you're gonna have to do regardless.
Oh, I understand. So, yeah, that's 6 months.
We're willing to look at it anytime you can.
Okay. Six months. 6 months will be.
Or prior to, if you have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
just we're putting a limit of 6 months.
But I hate.
And I would say that if for some reason you can't meet that 6 months, you get back to the board
Okay.
and let us know, and
All right.
we can extend that out.
We'll extend it. It's your money, it's not costing us anything.
Right. I just, because I know how much work we've done at this point, there's still a lot more that needs to be done.
Right.
Just to get it back to a level,
Well,
some.
hopefully 6 months would be more than you need, but we just
Well,
want to give you time to
that'd be
get
fine.
whatever.
Thank you.
you've done.
Yeah.
We'll
And this
give it our
won't
best shot.
this won't necessarily put a halt to anything you want to do, but just keep in mind that what you do, you want to make sure that it's going to be approved.
So there's no way to work with locally, I've got to go to Richland County. Everything I've got to do as far as the parking lot as far as the electricity or
Well,
anything.
that's state mandate, that's not, that's out of our bailiwick.
Yeah,
That's-
because Crawford County doesn't have their own, we use the Richland County.
Right, okay, well, thank you.
So.
Okay, so we
I
have,
would say whatever the motion needs to resemble, but should, like Rob said, possibly stipulate that, at the time he receives Richland County approval, he can come back to this body and ask for the zoning approval, so then they could issue that permit at that time. Something reflecting.
I'll make a motion as Landon stated. With a 6-month timeframe stipulated, giving him more time if needed.
Thank you.
and I would say that would also include an EPA inspection as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll second Mark's
There you go.
Okay, we
motion.
have a motion by Mr. McKeever and seconded by Mr. Lipscomb. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, we
I'm
did
sorry.
have one additional audience member. I didn't know if you maybe wanted to ask for additional comment on top of everything we just discussed.
I'm sorry, I did forget to ask for any other comments from any other visitors.
Yeah, my name is Jared Miller. Have a property on East Street. You guys covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. My other main concern just would be the parking. This area is very tight in parking as it is today. I love to hear the ambition. I love to hear the ideas for the property. It is an eyesore. It's something that needs improved. But just looking at all those uses and the tax that it's going to have on the existing parking that I think is around the area, I haven't seen the proposed parking plan, but it sounds like there's around 50 spots is what it has. That property has 4 floors. I think they discussed phases. Sounds like they have adequate parking for phase 1, which might be the first floor. But beyond that, there's no more available space on that site for parking. So if you start using that second and third floor, you're not going to have adequate parking. I just see it as a significant issue with this area, just based on the existing street parking, trying to put a bunch of trucks with trailers for the flea market. Weekends when all the property, or when the people are coming to actually view the flea market, and you have hundreds of people coming to this, where are they going to park? 50 spots isn't going to be adequate for all those trucks, all those trailers that are bringing the items, and then all the people that are coming to visit. So you're going to have it parking in the adjacent properties, the VFW, the houses in that area, the alleys. You're just going to see parking everywhere. They're going to park where they can. So just a concern from, I guess, a property owner in the area that I think this could spiral out of control, and the fact that it's a pretty intense use, and the amount of parking that would be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I can see where parking could become an issue there.
But with the,
With the initial plans, Landon, where do we fall with the parking requirement?
So with just the utilization of the first floor, I'm assuming each floor shares the same footprint as the first floor, but the first floor is noted as having 15,000-ish square feet. I think it's 15,288. And in our parking code, retail sales and personal service, both of those uses require 1 parking spot per 300 square feet of gross floor area. When you divide that 15,000 by the 300, you come up with that 51 number. So 51 parking spaces for the utilization of the entirety of the first floor would be in compliance with the code. And theoretically, if each floor shares that same footprint, shares that same square footage, and the use requires the same number of parking spaces per square footage, you could see that just, go up exponentially for each floor. So 51 to 102 to 153 to 204, if my math is correct.
Well, that raises a question in my mind. How many parking spaces if you utilized all the space behind there, how many parking spaces did you have?
Well, I think that's what's yet to be determined. That was what they had sought. The engineer in Shelby was going to provide them with some kind of plan. And again, until they clear off that
Yeah.
dirt area and see what they have, they may not know. And, you know, as this issue has been tabled, that's something that'll have to be,
But as you can see where I'm going, I mean, if they got 50 parking spaces, and they need 100 to use 2 floors, that would make it impossible for to use anything other than the first floor.
without a variance, that would be correct.
Excuse me, but we're willing to take the first floor, because we're planning the first floor is all we're planning at this point.
Yeah, I
At this
understand.
point, yeah.
I'm talking about future development.
Well, when it gets to that point, if it doesn't get to that point, Bill and I'll be happy about it, just to have that.
Yeah, well, I
Because
understand.
with
Yeah,
that
I
triangle
understand
out
that.
there, that puts us up to probably 110 parking spaces for the first floor.
Yeah,
So
well,
if we never get to the second floor, then so be it. I mean, I'm a happy guy to stay on the first floor.
Right now, we got them for 60 parking spots.
And when we open up that triangle part, that will give us that's why I said when we start to do this, rather than think around with just fulfilling the first floor requirements, let's go ahead and make the parking for the
Yeah.
second floor
Yeah,
as well. And we may
as
have
you
to
can,
the second
yeah.
floor. So that's gonna give us, and we won't know until Mark Quinn pushes that dirt around. So we actually get out and count that drawing as just an approximation as to what we see. We don't know how far and whatever until we actually get that dirt moved. Because I could, he said a day with it goes, or we open that up and then we actually start counting and coming up with a number of spaces. So it could end up being 120 spaces for the first floor, which makes it an entirely different ballgame. So, second floor, third, fourth floor may never happen.
So Landon, just to be clear on this then, if they did want to utilize the second floor and beyond, they would have to come back for another variance request.
If they're unable to provide the required number of parking spaces, the only way they would be able to do so would be through some
Through a
type of variance request from that required number of parking spaces,
Okay.
correct?
We'll know what we end up with once we move that dirt around. I mean, that's a specific thing. You go out and start counting. All we gotta do is just walk around and we can actually see how many parks. That's why that drawing was to show that there's the first floor. If we end up with 120 parking places on the first floor, then that's a large will go.
Okay, so right now we have a motion and seconded to table this with certain specifications. I think we can proceed with the roll call vote on that now then.
Mr. McKeever?
Yes.
Mr. Lipscomb?
Yes.
Mr. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Stride?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. So I guess we will wait to hear from you
Thank you.
for future plans and thank you very much.
I didn't recognize you at first. It's been a long time.
Well, I recognize you. Well, good luck, guys. It's all right.
Okay, I hate to have to drag this on a lot further, but we do have, I think you guys received also in your packets, information about possible changes to the sign regulations. Did you have a chance to look those over? Make comments about it?
No, I did not have, I didn't, no, I didn't.
I didn't either. I glanced at it,
Well, I did to some degree here, and the thing that caught my attention was election signs.
Was what?
Election,
Oh,
Yeah, that basically is what these changes pertain to for the most part.
Well,
because of the issues that we've had in the past with the election.
Like on Old Freddy's
well,
and a few
now,
other places.
and really, the thing that I most noted was the fact that it says here that signs are not supposed to be displayed anything prior to, more than 60 days prior to the election.
There's signs still up right now.
Signs up right now that are left from the last election. There's signs up now for the governor, which has the primary next March, which is
Is that
9 months from now.
Is that the current language, or is that?
That's current. There's quite a few signs around town, Blystone for governor.
Right, but is the 60 days the current language in the ordinance?
119106A, it says, signs concerning candidates for elective office or public issues will have the following restrictions. Shall be displayed for not more than 60 days before the date of the election for which a candidate or the issue is referred to, and shall be removed within 5 days of the election, after the election.
Okay, these that you're reading not right now here, these are proposed changes. These are
Okay.
not the current regulations.
Okay, because I was going to say that would be unconstitutional.
Okay.
We won't be able to adopt that.
So what the
Oh, is that right?
Really?
There's no way you'd
Okay.
be able to adopt
The
that
high-
whole, scrutiny.
what the highlighted portions here are what's proposed, is that?
The highlighted portions reflect proposed changes that Bill came up with, and then he came to my office and we talked about it.
The regulation of political and campaign signs has been greatly limited by the courts in local zoning ordinances in recent years. And as much as, there's signs from 2 elections ago in some places. Size of signs, placement of signs, time limits on signs are generally not approvable. The zoning code that we have now, that's why I was asking, it didn't sound like the right language. The zoning code we have now, we adopted condition of sign, so that if the sign's deteriorated or red or whatever, that can be cost reasonable. But when it comes to political signs, time limits, the courts have really clamped down on the ability to do that.
Well, that was gonna be my recommendation, that after the discussion here, Rob could take a look at them and give us those exact types of notes. But, that's true for the size of them as well.
Size has, the courts have punted a little bit on size. Size can be reasonable restrictions based on location and place. So, you can't put up a giant sign at an intersection that's gonna block the view. But if it's your property and it's on the side of your building, there may not be limitations there. It's just something that, as far as size goes, the courts have been a little bit more deferential to the cities to allow them to limit some of the sizes.
And I've viewed the changes that Bill came up with as more lenient in that area, but putting a true limit on it to where it's more easily enforceable from my perspective. And the thing that started the conversation was, it's not being enforced as it's written. They're not supposed to be in the tree lawn, for example. Everyone I've ever talked to has said they don't want me to go after them for putting them in the tree lawn. So that would be one of the changes, that they could put it in one of the small, typical election signs in the tree lawn, and then any other, I can't remember the specifics to, a larger freestanding sign or whatever, but the ones that Bill put in there, I viewed them as being allowing for a little bit more than the code currently does, and making it a little bit more easily enforceable. But it's probably worth sitting down with Rob and just going through it before we do anything with it anyhow, and since everybody didn't have a real good chance to look at it, then.
Yeah, I did. I thought that when we discussed it, that you were going to submit it to Rob
Oh,
to get
okay.
his,
That may have been the case and I didn't do it.
okay, to get his feedback on it, but, okay.
We can do that.
So other than a time limit, Rob, other than a time limit, is there anything else limiting as far as space and size and whatever?
Yeah, size, size and location can be somewhat limited. And content, with respect to political opinions, cannot be. So, you know, I would have great reservations if somebody put up a sign, you know, with vulgarities in it, but maybe constitutionally protected. You know, so we had a, I guess it's been 4 years ago now, we had an ad hoc sign committee. Sislov and several others were on that committee and went through and adopted the current sign ordinance and that council adopted. And I get now that they have an ordinance, people are telling me not to enforce it, but it's not going to change the ordinance, not to tell you to not enforce the law. So.
Yeah, I think that's what this was trying to spur.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Good, I want to discuss this. I mean, it's going to take us time to read.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Let me provide that to
Yeah.
Rob and you guys review it before the next meeting. And hopefully we can have some kind of corrected consensus from the legal, legal aspect of it and your guys' opinions as well.
Yeah, I just would like to kind of see this get into place, you know, before this upcoming election, you know,
Right,
so we're not,
That puts us on a deadline with
Yeah.
the general election approaching, so.
yeah, so, and to do that, we have to get it submitted to council for them to make that.
Well, I think we've seen in the past that we could, if there's ways to abuse it, some parties might try to stretch the envelope there a little bit.
It doesn't even matter about party, it's about person.
Person, well, okay.
Okay, so then do we want to review this and then bring it up at the next meeting for further review?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's a good idea.
Okay, we'll do that. And
Any
Okay,
updates that Rob provides to me, I'll get a new copy out, delivered to you guys in the meantime.
Okay.
that's great. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and seconded. Did we get that? Okay.
All right.
We are adjourned at 5:14.